Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. I see a few folks still trickling in, so we'll be letting folks in from the waiting room as we get ready to get started. Really excited to have you all here today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joe Amditis. I'm Assistant Director of Products and Events at the Center for Cooperative Media. And as I said, I'm really excited for this discussion today. My colleague, Anthony Advincula, our Ethnic and Community Media Coordinator at the Center, has just published a brand new report looking at the state of ethnic and community media in our great state of New Jersey. And so we're going to get into that a little bit today. We're going to have a great discussion with some community journalism publishers and reporters from across New Jersey and the region. And we're going to dig into the findings of the report as well. Before we get started, I'm going to go over some basics of how this is going to run today. We'll start with an overview of the report from Oni. He's got some slides to share. We'll hear a panel discussion with our three guest speakers today, as well as with Oni, our author. And then we'll get to audience Q&A. So we're going to leave at least 25 minutes at the end of our discussion for you to ask questions to both the author, Oni, our Anthony here, and our panelists. You can do so throughout the session as well in the chat box there at the bottom. Just make sure it's going to the person that you're intending it to go to. We will be sharing a recording and a transcript and some notes and all kinds of good stuff after this is over and once all those files are done processing. So if you miss a part of it or if you have to step away, please do that. Take care of yourself. Get water, use the restroom, whatever you need to do, we'll have a recording for you so that you don't miss anything important. I'll also be posting direct links to download the full report and to learn more about that throughout. If you have any issues or any trouble with Zoom or anything while this is going on, you can just send me a DM in the Zoom chat there, and I'll do my best to help you out behind the scenes. I think that's pretty much it. We have closed captions are enabled. If you'd like to enable those at the bottom, you can click the show captions button. And if you need anything else, as I said, I'll be in the chat just hanging out there and waiting and listening. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to our lead author and host for today, Anthony Advincula. Anthony, do you want to take it away?
Thank you, Joe, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Advincula. I am currently the coordinator for ethnic media initiatives at the Center for Cooperative Media at Montclair State University. Thank you for being with us today. I prepared a short slide presentation, and we're just excited to share with you some of the key findings of this new report. For nearly 25 years, my journalism work has been focused on ethnic and community media. In 2003, even when I was a correspondent for the Jersey Journal, I primarily covered immigration and immigrant and ethnic communities in Hudson County. So with that experience, I have to highlight that there is a strong correlation between the presence of in-language news organizations in the state and then the population of the diaspora communities. At the time, I remember, although Little India and Little Manila, for example, in Jersey City, were growing, the biggest immigrant group in the state was Latino. But it was also the time back between 2000 and 2010 when we saw a much greater uptick in the number of immigrants from all over the world. You know, that was the highest number ever of immigration within a decade. The survivability of ethnic media, I have to stress this, lies in their audience base. If their audience base, mostly new immigrants and people of color, does not get replenished, then somehow it would diminish their main purpose, that is to serve diverse communities. So needless to say, when there is a significant growth in immigrant and ethnic populations in a particular area, the ethnic and community media sector thrives. But what we've found also, another reason that we've been seeing why ethnic and community have become more vibrant, more prevalent in the state, is the much needed advocacy for communities, whether it's about the COVID-19 pandemic, immigration, police brutality, and other pressing social issues. So a few years before the pandemic or the George Floyd incident, there were hardly any Black publications in the state. But it was under those crucial social issues that 3 Black community news outlets, Black in New Jersey, the Atlantic City Focus, we will hear its publisher later, and the Trenton Journal were established, replenishing the dearth of Black publishers in the States. So when I spoke with one of the founder of Black in Jersey, he told me that it was really the pandemic that really forced him to launch the publication because he saw the need for his community. So despite the economic challenges that any news outlets face, the ethnic media sector in New Jersey has become more vibrant 2 decades ago as compared to 2 decades ago. So as we look at the state of ethnic media now, we found that there are at least 140, sorry, Joe. There you go. So we found that there are at least 140 ethnic and community news outlets in New Jersey, which is an increase of roughly 15% or 21 news outlets since the last time we looked at this in 2019. 25% of ethnic community media in the state serve Asian American communities. And this is because Asian Americans, the Asian American community is the fastest growing in terms of ethnic and racial group in the state or even the United States, while 22% of this ethnic and community media serve Latinos. So if you look at the breakdown, 10 of these news outlets identified serve the Chinese community, 5 Korean, 5 Filipino, 2 Muslim, 1 Pakistani, and 1 Hungarian. Of this, except for the Muslim and the Filipino news organizations, everything or everyone is published in language. At least 16 news outlets, mostly online platforms, currently serve the African American community. And I mentioned the reason for that earlier. A few years before the pandemic, Black media in the state nearly disappeared. And about 85% of ethnic and community media in New Jersey are in language and published or broadcast in more than 15 languages other than English. Can you imagine 15 languages? These languages include Spanish, Arabic, Urdu, Chinese, Korean, Hungarian, Polish, Haitian, Russian, Hindi, Gujarati, Punjabi, Ukrainian, Italian, Portuguese, Tagalog, Bangla, and Turkish. And most of these languages are also spoken at their homes or in public schools. In 2022, last year, again, this is based on the interviews that we conducted with publishers and editors, about 10% of ethnic media news outlets received advertising from New Jersey state agencies. So if you look at the numbers, out of the 140, about only 15 ethnic media news outlets got advertising from New Jersey state agencies. So the role of ethnic media, even at least 10 of them actually temporarily or permanently closed during the pandemic. The continuous growth of the ethnic population in the state and what has been going on politically, economically, and socially in our society, the role of ethnic and community media in informing our communities is more important than ever before. You know, they play this vital role in addressing the biases and failures of some of the mainstream media to cover, you know, the perspectives of immigrants and people of color. You know, it's included in the report. One of our partners documented they actually did a study and they found that, the stories in mainstream media do not reflect their own lived experiences and cultures, whether in the framing or in the delivery. So ethnic and community media, they have the unique ability to engage in community journalism that serves these audiences in ways that mainstream media cannot. So what are the challenges that ethnic media is facing or are facing? The majority of ad revenue of ethnic and community media comes from classified ads and ads placed by local retailers and restaurants in their communities. So when businesses shut down, those ads vanished. So like hundreds of news organizations in the country, ethnic and community media in the state also laid off staff due to the impact of the public health crisis. But then also only about 5% of them received larger ads from I would call mainstream business corporations like Macy's, Verizon, and similar companies. And only 10%, I mentioned this already earlier, receive ads, or 15% received ads from state or city agencies. And like in California and New York, where they required city agencies to spend at least 50% of their print and digital publication advertising in the ethnic and community media outlets in their cities and states. This has not happened again. This hasn't happened yet in New Jersey. So lastly, what we're recommending based on this situation, while we're so happy that the ethnic and community media remains, the sector remains vibrant in the state, is for the city agencies and the state agencies to allocate advertising dollars for ethnic and community media, and then if there is a friendly legislation for immigrants, more immigrants are going to come into the state. So that's also good for ethnic media outlets. The other suggestion or recommendation that we have is to increase community-based journalism collaborations. Ethnic and community media are no longer seen as supplements or secondary to mainstream. They have now in their own right, they are an invaluable communication infrastructure that supports diverse and community-based audiences. As we know, a lot of state agencies do not have the capacity to translate all the communications or the press releases to inform or give firsthand information to these communities. So that actually fills the void. Ethnic media, the role is filling the void and narrowing the information gap. And lastly, we are recommending that more training, more educational and cultural competency workshops are needed, not just for them, not just for ethnic media, more so for actually the mainstream publications or media news outlets. And this is for them to get better acquainted with issues in communities and help mitigate cultural biases in reporting. So when everyone knows and talks about the same issues, it can break down barriers. So Joe, are we gonna do a Q&A now, or because I've seen a couple here.
Yeah, so we're going to do our panel discussion. Why don't you introduce our panelists, and then they can you can have a discussion with them, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So let me introduce you to our panelists. They have worked in the ethnic media sector for decades. Some of them I've known for years and years. So first, I will hand it over to Mark Tyler, publisher of Atlantic City Focus, who will talk about Black media in the state. Mark?
Good afternoon. First things first, I want to thank Anthony for the comprehensive work that he has done on this report. He has done a stellar job in kind of doing a summary of ethnic media in the state of New Jersey. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Mark Tyler. I've been a journalist for more than 30 years. I've been a publisher for just under a year. And when we look at the report, we see that one of the key points that Anthony brought up is that prior to George Floyd and the pandemic, Black publishers in New Jersey were almost non-existent. And that speaks to some of Oni's conclusions, because sustainability has always been the key. If you look at legacy media was able to provide a base of sustainability on legal advertisements. But if you were a smaller publication, there were even lawsuits to prevent you from being able to accept legal publications. And so when Oni gets into his recommendations, I think he is spot on for what is actually needed. I'm very verbose, so I'm gonna allow some other folks to talk, but we can dig into this report a little bit more. But I'm very passionate. I'm very excited about it.
Ron, why don't you go ahead and
Yeah,
introduce
thank you,
yourself
Mark.
next?
Hi, hi everyone, and my name is Rong Xiaoqing. I'm a reporter for the Chinese language newspaper Xingtao Daily. I've been working for Xingtao for more than 20 years, covering anything that related to the Chinese diaspora, Chinese immigrant community in both New York, sometimes in New Jersey as well. New Jersey has become a very important and more important region for Chinese language newspapers or other Chinese language media outlets to cover because of the population growth. It's really fast. And there are so many stories that related to New Jersey Chinese immigrants that I think we could never say that we have done enough. And I look forward to discuss further about all of these.
Hi, my name is Clevel Marcano. I'm going to read a little bit something that I prepared for this presentation. My name is Clevel Marcano, editor of Reporte Hispano, a print newspaper that is distributed in Central and North Jersey counties, as well as its website that is visited by readers from all over the state and outside of New Jersey. Since 2006, we have surveyed and continue to survey the Hispanic community of the Garden State. In these 17 years, we have seen the Hispanic community grow, both on numbers and in economic power and political influence. Today, Hispanics in New Jersey represent 20% of the population, according to the census, and in the rest of the country, it's estimated that it will continue to grow significantly. The gross domestic product of the Hispanic market in New Jersey has also been increasing over the years. According to the 2019 Bank of America study, in New Jersey, the GDP of the Latino represented 91 billion a year, an amount that the statewide Spanish Chamber of Commerce of New Jersey currently estimate in $95 billion a year. Similarly, Hispanic political representation at different levels of government has increased. Currently, there are 4 Latina assemblywomen, 1 assemblyman, and 3 Latina senators. However, Latinos still do not have the proportional political representation in New Jersey in politics and government. The Hispanic community in the state has led and participated in many battles to demand their rights. And together with them, we have informing motivate and educate the rest of the community about the progress in the battles for their rights. From the more than 10-year fight to get a driver license for undocumented immigrant in the state, to the in-state institution for young immigrants who want to go to the college, to the recent victory for the law protecting the right for the temporary workers, Report Hispano has been accompanying and informating to these struggles. During the COVID pandemic, the media also played an important role by informing the community in their language about the measures that taken by the government to combat the pandemic, such as reducing the epidemic, where to get vaccinated, deny the misinformation that prevalent in the social media. Today, we continue our work on informing of issues of vital importance to the community, such as affordable housing, education, and immigration, among other issues. But all this effort has not been easy. Like any undertaking, financial resources are needed to carry out our work. Sponsored ads are getting smaller and smaller every day. Small business in the community do not have sufficient income to regularly invest in advertising in print media. Advertising for large corporations are become fewer and fewer in the Latino media, and government ads are scarce. Converted to a digital-only edition remains a myth for Latino print media. In the digital space, you are forced to compete with large corporations like Facebook and Google, something that is impossible for any small media outlet. Using digital tools to have a greater reach in the community is very functional, and it really works. In Report Hispano, in addition to the website, we have email blasts that we send to more than 10,000 people. And this year we create a postcard with the headlines of our edition in association with Radio Jornalera de New Jersey. We spend listening to by more and more people. But this greater reach does not imply obtain greater income. In the digital world, per view is in cents or less. In order to create a modest income, millions of visits are required, something that no small ethnic media can achieve, even if they hire a person exclusively to attend the digital part. So the state Hispanic media continue to rely on traditional advertising revenue, in our case, print ads. Some people believe that Spanish language media are destined to disappear, as the new generation of Hispanic born in this country prefer English language media. However, as immigrants from Latin America continue to arrive in the US, the Hispanic press will always have an important role to play in informing, educate, and guide recent arrivals. The current situation on the southern border with Mexico indicates that the Hispanic press still has many, many years of life in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Clivel. Let's go back to Rong again. Rong, can you tell us, in terms of the coverage of the Chinese language publications in New Jersey or in New Jersey, New York, and the role really of Singtao Daily for one. Can you tell us more about that with COVID-19 and what's going on, in a larger society? What have you been seeing lately in terms of the coverage and what the Chinese immigrants really read or would like to read from your publication?
Sure. I think many of you might know that New Jersey has always been very important in the Chinese immigrant community's history. In history, the first Chinatown on the East Coast is the one in Belleville. It started in 1970s, in the 1870s, and then expanded to Newark. That was even earlier than Manhattan. New York has had any Chinatown, and then today, the Chinese Asian population and Chinese population is really a major composition of New Jersey's population, and the Asian population makes up 10% of the whole state's population, and which is more than 1 million people. And there are more than 110,000 Chinese in New Jersey. So if you go to a lot of it, like in New Jersey cities, Jersey City, Fort Lee, in a lot of places you can see Chinese shops and Chinese restaurants. You can see our newspapers. So almost, I would say, any major stories that we have a New Jersey Chinese version or a Chinese, sort of like story related to a bigger topic of the whole Chinese community, or maybe even American topics. During the pandemic, we covered a lot, of course, Asian hate crimes. Yeah, that's, of course, is a national trend, but New Jersey has its own share, unfortunately. We covered people were attacked on the street, and they were like, there's some like graffiti on the wall of Asian shops, saying that go back to your own country, things like that. And we also at the same time covered how New Jersey Chinese immigrants donated masks and PPEs to the local community centers or hospitals and things like that. The government COVID measures, that's closely related to Chinese living in New Jersey, especially a lot of people who don't speak English, cannot read the government instructions. So we have those kind of coverage to inform them, what to do, what the policies are. And today, I think the most important issues or the hottest topics among New Jersey Chinese immigrants are, this is actually, as like New York Chinese also care about, safety issue, and then education and inflation. I think this might be the three most, the biggest topics now among Chinese immigrants. Specifically in New Jersey, the bailout reform, now there's some people are trying to roll it back. But in today's environment, when crime rates are going up, so the opinions on these kind of topics are very diverse, and it's getting more and more diverse within the Chinese community. So you would say that liberal or progressive leaning Chinese debating conservative Chinese about on things about bailout reform or no test, or what to do with standard tests, things like that. And also at the same time, we noticed there's a trend that more and more Chinese immigrants are not only coming out to vote, but they also start their own campaign to run for public offices. I actually recently just interviewed Chinese living in Princeton. She is the first Chinese running for state assembly. She's running, I think it's 15th district, I think that is. So she's the conservative side. 2 years ago, she and some other Chinese living in Princeton started to fight against the proposal in that county to open the market for the entertainment marijuana shops. And they pick up that fight, and now before that she was totally like not interested in politics, but after that she got into politics more and more, like deeper and deeper. Now she's running for assembly. So that's what we're seeing, that basically the community is really thriving, and there are so many stories to do.
Thank you. Let's go to Clybelle. You mentioned that, now New Jersey population of the Hispanic or Latino community, it now is 21% of the entire population. But we have also been seeing that the Latinos now, especially, they are now dispersing. Before, they're just like clustered in like one specific area, like central New Jersey, specifically Elizabeth, Newark area. So that dispersion of the Latino population, how does that help, your publication or other Latino publications somehow serving even the ones who are already in the suburbs or smaller places?
Well, the Hispanic population is not only in the central New Jersey, I will say more in the North Jersey area. It's a lot. They like to be living in urban areas. And now, yes, it's more people coming to the south, to the central, more to the south, because every year more immigrants coming to the state. It's getting harder to find jobs over there in the north and central counties. And also is usually in the south part of the state, they can find bigger houses, more space. So it's sometimes better, not better job, but more job because less competitive. For us is, well, we used in the past, we had 17 years in the market in the good times. We used to put the paper in Camden, Atlantic City, Bayland. There's a large population Hispanic over there in these cities. Right now, we cannot take the newspaper over there, but we have the website, and we have some association with right now. This year, we start to do a postcard with the headline of the newspaper with Radio Jornalera. I know they also use the social media to spread the news, no, or this area, no. Yeah, but I guess people in South Jersey, they really don't have the same amount of Hispanic publication that people in North Jersey and Central Jersey have. It's a few ones. It's very small over there. It's more difficult also because the problem that New Jersey had, as everybody know, that New Jersey doesn't have their own market for the advertisers, the advertising agents. They see New York market and Philadelphia market, and they divide New Jersey in both. From Central Jersey to up is New York market, and from Central Jersey, we say from Trenton to down is Philadelphia market. So when they buy the advertising, when they focus in the big cities, New York and Philadelphia, and in New Jersey, they don't see the importance of the Hispanic community, even though we had 20%, no, percent of the population in New Jersey. So they don't put too much money in this market for the Hispanic community, no? Because they also focus in the big city, New York and Philadelphia. And this is very bad, no, for people for a small publication like us, because we hope to get this advertising so we have more sources to try to reach more people, no, in place where is more distance for us to get there. But we have the website, and we understand that the Hispanic community like to use them social media, on Facebook, WhatsApp. They try to get information through this social media also.
Thank you. Mark, I want to ask you, because you mentioned about sort of like in relation to news deserts, right? Somehow you described that Black communities, especially before George Floyd, the pandemic, there were not covered by daily or non-daily newspapers in a way that the Black communities are supposed to be covered. Could you talk more about that, how this news desert gap somewhat, with your reporting on a nearly daily basis? How does that challenge you to stop? What was the challenge that and then made you decide to establish, Atlantic City Focus? I think this is a reflection of the Black media in New Jersey, if not in the whole country.
I'm glad you asked that question, because I would venture to say many, if not all, of the new 12 Black publications have been in a moment like this that I'm about to describe. As you're looking at the challenge of sustainability versus the actual need to create a safe space where Black people can tell their own stories in their own way, there comes a point when you have to make a decision. Is the juice really worth the squeeze? We understand the need, we understand the challenge for sustainability, but then there might be one thing that pushes you over and gives you the oomph, so to speak, to go ahead and start that publication. For me, I was in the valley of decision, and I got a pop-up on my phone from a legacy media. And it said the 5 best Atlantic City non-casino restaurants. So as I'm in the valley of decision, I open my phone and I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking. And conspicuously absent was Kelsey's Restaurant, where, if you know Atlantic City, it is a pride of the Black community. So this restaurant has been conspicuously completely left off the list. Now, they've been recognized for having like the best fried chicken in New Jersey, but in the legacy media, they don't even make the list. And at that point, you have 2 choices. You can either get angry and you can pout because you have been excluded and you have been overlooked, or you can make the decision to take the bull by the horns and create your own media where you have the power to create your own list. I think this is the challenge that Black media has faced for decades and for generations. Legacy media only values us because we can help fill up the police blotter. Legacy media only values us because maybe we'll buy an ad, maybe. Legacy media only values us because they can treat us as objects. But the role of the Black media is to treat our community as subjects. And I think this is how we're going to address these news deserts. And this is the importance of the work that we're doing, not just in Atlantic City and Atlantic City Focus, but all over the state.
Thank you. Let's touch base on the digital divide. Everyone is now shifting to digital, right? But in ethnic media, print edition is still really valuable. So I want to ask you, while reducing print, can save money, is it enough to ensure the survival of the publication? So why is print so important, especially for ethnic media? Do you want to address that wrong first? And we'll see if Clybell and Mark, could add more to it.
Yeah, I think we have been asking ourselves that question very often as well, especially in today's environment. But then if you think about our history and our current status, I joined Singtel in 2002. Since then, through now, all the newspapers, the Chinese language newspapers, I think there were 5 or 6 something in New York City at that time, and now there were only 1 went out of business. All the others were still are still alive, although we're all struggling. When you think about the reason, I think a major reason is we have cultivated a big amount of a big population of readership who are very loyal to us. Singtao came to the U.S. You know, this is a Hong Kong newspaper, started in the 1930s, but it entered the U.S. in the 1960s. So this is like more than half a century. For all this time, there's a whole generation, or maybe 2, readers who just have to read Singtao every day. That's the reason we're still alive today. So I guess the reason we still keep this print version is for them, because a lot of them are seniors. They belong to the older generation, and they're used to hold a physical newspaper. So I think we feel that's part of our responsibility to provide them the product as they know it. But of course, you know, it's a big challenge to keep a print newspaper today, and it's very costly. And you have to, you know, not only you have to maintain the machines, you have to hire the workers. It's just so much cost. So I think when the older generation is fading out in our vision, sooner or later, this print newspaper would have to go. And also another thing I want to say is we're all talking about transfer to the digital version, transfer into online, but still the business model of online journalism is not quite established. You can do a very well website, but the advertisement dollars is not really what we would expect it to be. You know, look at BuzzFeed, look at Vice. You know, these are big. We used to think they're so successful online media, and now most of them are gone. So how do we make money out of that? That's another question.
Really good point. Thank you, Ron. Clybell, can you share what you've been seeing in your community, or especially in the Spanish language publications? Why print matters?
Yeah, well, it's almost the same reason that Rose said. People like the newspaper. They like to feel the newspaper in their hand, read the story. People are accustomed to go to the street and take from the newsstand the paper, or from the bodega. They like it that because they've been this tradition from their country, from Latin America usually, and they like to read the paper. It's usually all generated. These people is in the country, they don't use the internet like here, so they are accustomed to read the newspaper. Also for us as a company, this is the only way that we can make money. We rely completely in the advertising, the print advertising. We had the website, we had the postcard, we had the email blast. It doesn't make money. This is a myth that you can survive with only digital. This is a myth, because you have to compete with this big company like Facebook, Google, and the pay for view is cents or less than a cent. So if you want to have a revenue enough to pay all the employee, everything, you need millions and millions and millions of views. So how you can get so much view if you are a local newspaper that only cover one state? It's impossible. And not all the state. You cover one portion of the state, the only Hispanic community, no? So it's impossible to compete. People who say, no, you have to go to the digital. Digital is good. It's a good tool to reach people. I don't say no. It's very good. You can reach more people using the digital tool, but you cannot make money. This is a had news feed they upload that this lady say. It's impossible. You cannot make money. The only people who make money there is Google, Facebook, the New York Times, because it's a national newspaper who have a big name, recognized everywhere in the world. This kind player can make money, but the small newspaper cannot make money in the digital. It's a good thing to reach people, but you never want to make money. Who say, no, you have to forget the print edition and go everything online. Yeah, it's nice, it's cheaper, but how you maintain how you survive? Where you get the money? No, you're not going to get money. It's impossible to get money when you are a small publication. So people who say print is not necessary, but people don't understand how this business works.
Let's let's hear from Mark, because yours is an online-based publication. How do you make money?
Well, let's hope that Clybo's wrong, first of all, right? I've been a publisher for
I have
about
17 years in this business.
yeah, so I've been in business for a year. I just did my taxes. I didn't have the greatest P&L this year. So hopefully Clybo's going to be wrong. When we talk about the newspaper, right? The newspaper is the world's oldest laptop, right? Before there was the digital thing, the newspaper is you smell it. You get the ink on your fingers. It makes you feel good, particularly if you're an old news hound like me. But where my challenge was in starting a publication, I made the decision to go digital because, number one, I can't put the boots on the ground to actually deliver it to the newsstands. And then on top of that, you got to find a printer who, well, I won't, like you guys, I'm going to be reaching out to you when I get to that level. And maybe if I need to do a print version, I'll see who you get for a reliable print person. But even the legacy newspapers are closing up their printing presses. Like, where do you even find a printing press, and how far do you have to drive to pick up your papers? And it, from a cost perspective, it doesn't work for me, not yet. But the hope is that we can provide a digital product that meets the need of the readers in such a way that the readers will value our work and pay us to keep providing the service that they need. I think where you get into trouble is by making assumptions, right? Like we all want to do lofty, great work, but if we're not on a granular level finding out what the readers want, it's all for naught. And we're definitely, absolutely not going to make money. I think that's the difference between digital and print. Print, your advertiser can pick up the paper, he can put it on his shelf, he can put it in his lobby. But with the digital media, you have to have individuals who want to read, want to consume your information, whether it's a blog, whether it's a podcast. You have to have actual people who want your actual thing.
Thank you. We have a few questions here, and I'm just going to read it, and then feel free to just respond. How can activists, this is from Brian, how can activists like me induce government, local, city, state, to allocate more public notice advertising dollars to diverse community media?
I can talk about that. I was actually looking at that question just now, and I think the most efficient. I won't call it efficient because it would take a long time. But I think what we should you guys as advocates, activists should really do is to start from the policy level. Without a policy, without a government rule, everything is will be fluid. This mayor would say, okay, I like ethnic media, I'll give you some money. And next mayor would say, oh, no, we were not going to do it. So I think to make it a law is very important. In New York, during the De Blasio era, there was some policy, but that was executive order. It was not a legislation. But even that executive order that involved so many activists' effort through all the years. I think Oni probably was involved in that in his previous life. So now the Mayor Adams formed an office called Ethnic Media Office, which is dealing with all things that related to ethnic media, including advertisement allocation. That's kind of like attention that he has been paying on the sector, but still there's no law. So what I'm saying is, if it's possible to work and successfully made the previous mayor issued that executive order, I think a law is possible as long as people can keep working on it.
Yeah, thank you. And plus, there's a lot of information about resources and services that have not been funneled, effectively in the immigrant and ethnic communities, whether it's legal services, food banks, or income assistance, healthcare, mental health services. Those are perfect for ads. Those are screaming for ads. And the recipients of this, by and large, are really, people of color you want to target in immigrant communities. So there is really a strong messaging there that is needed that the state or local or city agencies can actually provide. And somehow translation is not enough. And so this is where the ad can actually fill the void, right? I mean, California ethnic media services, they've been really successful about this because they do translate the ad. So when the state agency places an ad, for example, in Thai or in Nepali or whatever language, or in Vietnamese, they would translate that that ad into that language, and it becomes more visible for the target audience. So there are ways of doing this that would really make it more effective in terms of messaging. Allende has a question. What should the relationship between mainstream or / legacy and ethnic media be? Does there need to be a relationship between the two? And is it necessary or beneficial for ethnic media to partner with mainstream media? Who would want to answer this? Should we go for Mark first?
Oh, I'll gladly take this this question, because I actually spent more than 10 years in legacy media before launching this publication sometime later. There's always an opportunity for partnership between legacy and ethnic media. But the challenge is, what does that look like? And who benefits from it? And how do you monetize it? Until you can answer those three questions, I think you're not going to see it happen. Because, okay, let's say Atlantic City Focus partners with the legacy media, the Press of Atlantic City. Well, hey, it's wonderful, because the Press of Atlantic City gets the benefit of working with Atlantic City Focus, and Atlantic City Focus gets the benefit of working with the Press of Atlantic City. But at the end of the day, the Press of Atlantic City has an advertising base that is somewhat loyal to them. And just because I have an affiliation with them, those dollars don't necessarily funnel back to me. If we can figure out how there a monetary symbiosis can be established, then we can get into that. But until such time as that happens, I think what you're going to see and what you're going to have to see is ethnic and community media being better at what we do than legacy media. And that creates our value. And that is why people pay us. But I'll open that up to others.
And in addition to that, ethnic and community media have sources and resources that mainstream or legacy media don't have. You know, ethnic and community media, they have the language, they have the cultural nuances that legacy or mainstream media reporters may not have. So it's perfect thing for collaboration, you know, a collaborative reporting probably between ethnic and general market media would always result in more friendly, you know, both sides unbiased, you know, political discussions, and likely more informed voters, for example, in neighborhoods across New Jersey that mainstream or legacy media have not reached out to. So both sectors would actually benefit from it. It's going to be a mutually beneficial for both sectors. So I don't, you know, it really won't hurt. And again, the fact that I mentioned earlier, ethnic and community media, they're no longer supplements to mainstream media. You know, in their own right, you know, they are an invaluable communication infrastructure that supports these community-based audiences. So like what I said, 15 languages, you know, reporting or broadcasting in 15 languages that mainstream media, you know, so far don't have it. So it's more economical, right? By doing collaborations, it's actually more economical for mainstream, and it's also good for visibility for and firsthand information for the communities that ethnic and community media serves. There is a really interesting question here from Ricardo Calisar. Are there ethnic media outlets that have formed in recent years that are serving new growing immigrant populations, and what are they? What topics are your respective media outlets covering that you're surprised has gotten your readership's attention? Let's start with the number 2 question. Clyde, do you want to address this? What topics are your respective media outlets covering that you're surprised has gotten your readership's attention?
Basically, not really. Basically, we cover education. Right now, I see very interested Hispanic community in affordable housing. There's a problem with the housing right now. People try to establish a rent control. In the community, is a movement about this. Education is always important, also immigration. Topics, different topics, I really don't see any. Maybe because we are too conservative, maybe. We don't do this kind of cover other topic that we think is interesting for the community. But I really don't know. I don't have an answer for that new topics.
What about you, Mark, or Ron? Anything that stands out?
Really, like, we cover topics that we already know. It's topics people are talking about in our community. So in terms of like something that we surprise our readers, I don't think there are many. But I can talk talk a little bit about the first part of the question, which is like what new media are covering the new immigrants. I think for us in the Chinese world, those are the so-called self-media outlets on WeChat. We do a lot of stories to cater to the needs or interest of new immigrants as well. But the WeChat self-media is basically one-man shops that they just run it on the social media platform, WeChat, which is the largest social media platform that Chinese immigrants are using. So those mini media, they often picked up hot topics for new immigrants very quickly. And they have the ability to spread their stories very broadly, and even like more broadly than us, because once someone started to be interested in one story, they started to like repost, and those reposts could reach quickly to 100,000 clicks or something like that. But at the same time, traditional media are kind of our existence are threatened by these new type of online or WeChat media outlets, not only because they react swiftly to topics, but also because they don't have any accountability. Like we have physical existence, and we have to do check and balance all of that kind of things. But think about that. You are just an avatar, an alias behind some kind of online presence. You can basically do and say whatever you like. You pick up something that you haven't even checked whether it's correct, and you just publish it, and everyone started to repost it. Then it become a sort of a fake truth. If there's something like that, can be called a fake truth. And that is really a big challenge for the Chinese language media outlets today.
Yeah, I want to address the first part of the question. In New Jersey, actually, is one thing that's really special about the state. If you look at smaller, niche market, there is a growing Hungarian population in New Jersey, or has already grown a lot, actually, over the last 20 years. There is the Ukrainian, population also is growing. We had that conversation with immigration expert with one of our panels, that because of what's happening in Ukraine, the state received hundreds of new Ukrainian immigrants. One of the oldest public ethnic publications in the country is actually Ukrainian. The Ukrainian Weekly, it's in New Jersey. It's more than 150-year-old. Also the Hungarians, they're forming new populations, replenishing their populations, but they're really not new. The America Nipsaga, or Nipsava, which is Hungarian Weekly, has been there for 125 years old. So these are not really new, but we haven't really talked a lot about it because they're smaller populations as compared to the rest. Joe, can we get one more question? How are we doing with time?
Technically we have 10 minutes left. I see some people are having to jump off. I think we have time for one more. I just wanted to take, for my sense here, I wanted to ask you, Oni, what was the most surprising thing that you found in the course of doing this research? What is something you found that you were just like, damn, something that really stuck out to you? And then if any of the panelists want to answer that in terms of what they found one of the more surprising, features of it would be.
Yeah, the most surprising is actually the fact that many researchers, and I get it, some sort of like painting an apocalyptic, picture of ethnic media, ethnic and community media. Yes, economically, everyone is suffering. But the most surprising is in particularly in New Jersey, it's thriving. It's growing. And again, of what we talked about, population, the increase in population, also all of this pressing social issues. There is this decision there of a publisher whether, oh, should I close this down, or I have the moral obligation to continue this for the communities that I serve. So without a question, ethnic media in New Jersey have been a driving force in all of these social debates. So if we were to judge by, let's say, the massive demonstrations of during the George Floyd, incident, calling for reform, or demonstrations around immigration, all of that, if you can count on that fact that these audiences were kept informed on the nuances of this social issues, then ethnic media and ethnic and community media are definitely here to stay in New Jersey, at least in New Jersey.
Love it. I love it. I think that pretty much does it for us today, folks. I would just want to thank everybody so much for coming today. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Oni. Thank you to everybody. Please go ahead and read that report. It's really, really important, and it follows on a 2019 report that the center released. We will be sending out a recording of this session today, as well as a bunch of resources, documents, and materials for your reading pleasure. Just one more round of applause here. Thank you all so much, Ron, Claybell, Mark, Oni. Appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who joined. If you have questions, you want to follow up with our speakers, their email addresses are in the email that I will send to you shortly. So thank you so much, folks. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your Memorial Day, and we will see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.